what is the ideal diet? What would be the best diet for human beings? How can we humans survive on a diet based on fruits and vegetables? A raw food diet is actually the best diet. Can we eat like chimpanzees, like bonobos, like gorillas, and actually be healthier? Stay until the end to understand more about the Eden's diet, the original diet of man throughout evolution, throughout 8 millions of years before we start cooking and start changing our diet maybe forever. Hi, I'm Dr. Corassa. I'm a clinical nutritionist from Brazil that has saved his life 18 years ago with a lifestyle medicine called natural hygiene, the science of health. Natural hygiene gave me a new life, an understanding about our biology, physiology, biochemistry, about our natural diet, and about how lifestyle medicine is actually the biggest, the most important form to treat disease and produce health. Therefore, I was sick, diabetic, about to do 2 surgeries, a plethora of chronic diseases, and now for almost 18 years, I have lived disease-free, without even a small symptom, without a sore throat, without sneezing, coughing, without a fever. The life has become way much better just because I understood what we call the science of health. I understood that health is produced by healthful living, and no other means in the planet can actually produce health. Only diet, sleep, exercise, sunshine, and other lifestyle behaviors that we can actually choose to practice or choose not to practice. And then we enjoy health or we suffer disease. So yes, health is in your hands. You can choose to be healthy or you can choose to be sick every single day. And when I understood that, I was for sure open to the idea that human beings have been frugivores for millennia. For millions of years, we have lived on the tropics, eating primarily fruits and vegetables, and that could actually save human beings from not just all these health problems that we face, but from destroying the planet and saving everything that lives. So let's understand more about the fruitarian diet that is actually not fruitarian, but a frugivore diet that is actually our natural diet. If we were relegated to nature without tools, without cooking, we would be forced to live upon again on fruits and vegetables, like the anthropoid primates that still live in nature, haven't developed tools like we did, and still live primarily on fruits and vegetables. So before we start talking about diet, I need to talk about heliocentrism and geocentrism. Before Galileo and Copernicus, around 500 years ago, people used to think that the Earth was the center of the universe instead of the sun. But Galileo and Copernicus brought the idea that the sun was the center of the universe. So one was actually killed and the other suggested that he was wrong. But he didn't believe that he was wrong. He just didn't want to be murdered by the church back then, because any idea that goes against the status quo throughout human evolution was always opposed, heavily opposed. Nowadays, a person that suggests that the sun is not the center of the universe, but the earth, would be laughed upon. We would see him as a person that didn't went to school, a person that didn't study, a person that doesn't know anything. But it's still funny that we have to teach anthropoid primates like human beings what they should be eating. It's like, imagine that chimp talking to his son, you have to eat fruits and vegetables because it's your nature and they're good for you. It's the same thing we human beings going to nutritionists asking, what should we eat? It's quite funny if you think about it, but actually it's what is happening. Human beings, the third chimpanzee, as Jared Diamond, the famous anthropologist, suggests in his book, don't know anymore what they were supposed to eat in nature. It's funny, it's sad, it's terrible, but it's what is happening in the planet right now. So, do you want to know more about fasting and how to live a healthful life, or even raw vegan recipes? Hygienic Fasting, Nature Surgery, and the book Natural Delicacies, Cooking Without a Stove are available on Amazon, and Hygienic Fasting is actually available on print on demand, so you can receive it at your home. But I also have 8 books published, 6 online courses, retreats here in Brazil, and I attend patients online in private sessions. Unfortunately, all the other books and the online courses are still only available in Portuguese. But if you want my help as a nutritionist, or even if you want to come to a retreat in Brazil, just sign up. The contact will be on the website and in the links below. And if you like the content, please don't forget to subscribe, hit the bell button for notifications, comment, share the video. If you do all those, you are going to help the channel to grow. If we grow, you grow together, getting more vital, life-changing information and help yourself and others to make this a more healthy and a better planet for all of us. After living 18 years in a frugivore diet, I think I gathered all the information we need to understand the science behind it, the logic behind it, and the practical application behind it, so you can change your life and your diet forever. So we see with this example of Galileo and Copernicus what has been happening throughout human evolution. New ideas were always heavily opposed. If you think about it, Ignaz Semmelweis, the medical doctor that suggested that his friends should actually wash their hands while they are actually doing surgeries. Yes, before Ignaz Semmelweis, a few hundred years ago, medical doctors would go into a surgery with blood in their hands from the last surgery. It's crazy. And the guy was actually seen as a lunatic and ostracized and prohibited to practice medicine. So a lot of these ideas, like natural hygiene, for example, the creator of natural hygiene, his name was Isaac Jennings, Dr. Isaac Jennings, and he suggested that people should live a healthful life. He created a placebo pill that he gave to this placebo pill to patients made of bread and water. And he suggested that these pills only work if you eat healthy, lots of fruits and vegetables, if you exercise, if you sleep early, if you do sunbathe and other simple lifestyle habits. But when he went out to cure hundreds, millions of people in America. But when he came up front and told everybody that what he was doing, the pills are fake. What you guys are doing, you're just living healthy. He was ostracized and prohibited to practice medicine. So you can see these examples along human history. So an idea that is so simple as eating fruits and vegetables as the base of our diets, like the anthropoid primates, our closest relatives, our closest cousins in nature, and like human beings have been doing for millions of years according to anthropology, paleoanthropology, biology, and other sciences. It sounds crazy. What else can you eat in nature without cooking, without tools? Only primarily fruits and vegetables. So many people consider a raw food diet something radical. But if you think about it, what is radical? If you see a horse walking around, eating cooked food and smoking, you would think that is radical. But in a society that is living up on burgers, French fries, pizzas, alcohol, and a lot of other bad stuff, seeing somebody talking about living on raw foods, he is seen as radical. But taking care of our health is radical. Living healthy so you can live your fullest potential of lifespan and health span is actually harmful, is radical. We lost ourselves, that's for sure. But natural hygiene can actually put you back on track again. So 80% of the species on the planet, around 80% of 700,000 species are plant-based. They eat plants, or primarily or exclusively. And 100% of these species are raw fooders. So it's not radical. You cooking everything that you eat, it's radical. But living with our natural diet, with what nature provides us, that is the norm throughout evolution. So that's for sure the most healthy diets you can think of. But everybody asks me, Dr. Corassa, yeah, but where's the science behind raw foods? If we took a look at the science, anthropology shows that human beings have been on the planet from 6 to 8 millions of years. But do you think Adam and Eve had cook stoves, had pans, salt shakers, and forks and pans and knives and plates and potatoes and beans, rice and meat for them just to cook in the Garden of Eden? That's ridiculous, right? So we have to go back to geology. Geology shows that the last ice age, that is called wurn glaciation, actually happened 100,000 years ago. With the ice age, fruits and vegetables were no longer available to us because everything was too cold for it. So we had to learn how to cook. We had to learn how to survive this ice age. And then human beings with incredible brains and anatomical capacities to develop tools, we have learned how to cook our food to be able to eat it and not die of starvation during this ice age. But it was actually good for us? I don't think so. Maybe it allowed us to live through harsh times, but it actually damaged our health in the long run. So the ice age ended around 13,000 years ago with what we call the cradle of civilization in fertile crescent area in the Middle East, where we learned to plant wheat, barley, oats, and other grains that were actually storable throughout the year. So we didn't need it anymore, our nomad civilization, but we could be stationary. We could build cities because some people could just plant the grains, some other people could just prepare the food, and some other do any other kind of activities. So we start to develop skills, professions. We start to change human nature. We change from a diet that was rich in fruits and vegetables, that was really colorful, that was mostly obtained from the top of the trees, and we were always walking around doing a lot of exercise to obtain our foods, to a more stationary civilization, and a lot less fruits and vegetables, and way more based on wheat, barley, grains, starch, and even animal products, because we start using these animals to be able to plow the lands, to be able to plant more food for us to store it in silos so we could cook any time we needed. So fruits and vegetables are perishable. They depend on the season, but starch, it doesn't, because it can be stored out through even for a year or so. So starch needs to be cooked. Fruits and vegetables don't. So we start cooking all of our food. But the science, as this article suggests, there was a big change from our natural diets to the neolithical diets, to a more starch-based and more animal product-based diets. And that is a reduction of height, changes in the size of our skull, teeth, pathologies, greater incidence of infectious diseases, zoonoses, diseases coming from animals, all connected to nutritional deficiencies, because most people don't understand meeting the RDA, the DRI for nutrients It's not the normal, it's the lowest you can get, because we do these, the RDA and DRI are the recommendations of nutrients that you must get every day. So suggesting that you need X amount of vitamin A, vitamin C, vitamin B12, that is actually what we have been getting. So you can get a lot less than what your body actually needs. So with fruits and vegetables, they were much more less caloric density, but they had much more nutrient density. That means they were poor in calories, but they were way more rich in vitamins, minerals, phytonutrients, antioxidants, fiber, and other plant constituents. So these nutritional changes actually were harmful to us, but we can survive. You can see everybody on the planet. Cooked food doesn't kill you, but for sure, in my humble opinion, after 20 years of studying, practicing, and helping patients to get well, I can suggest that yes, cooked food can actually reduce our health and longevity. And that's not me suggesting. You can see David Sinclair, for example, suggesting that AGEs, advanced glycation end products, can actually reduce sirtuin activities. That the sirts are actually enzymes, proteins that are made by the body to help to repair the system. So there's a lot of evidence, but nobody connecting the dots. So this other scientific article suggests that dental disease is a matter of civilization, because only after civilization and cooking and fire and the change of our diets, they can find in schools dental issues. So most people think that our diet were pretty consistent throughout evolution. They think we evolved eating McDonald's, eating fast food, junk food, but that was not the case. And even most people that think that we evolved eating cooked food, that was actually not the case, because for 8 millions of years, we have lived on this planet. And pans, pots, ways of cooking, more tools of cooking were only developed 5,000 years ago. Salts, forks, knives, spoons, plates, it's pretty recently. Even then, when a human being start cooking a few thousand years ago, they were not eating rice, beans, potatoes, meat, some kind of juice, and other ingredients in the same meal. They were eating pretty simple throughout all time in the planet that we have been cooking for 10,000 years, 100,000 years, maybe a little bit more. It doesn't matter. But it's just a really short time compared to our evolution time. And back then, without the tools to cook, human beings were cooking a lot less. They were eating a lot more fresh fruits and vegetables out of the trees and just a little bit of anything else. So imagine yourself creating a fire and trying to cook something in nature without the adequate tools. It's like, can you imagine that? Is it actually possible? So you can think about it. But if we take a look, really not too long ago, gout was called the diseases of the kings, because only kings could eat a lot of meat, a lot of cooked food, industrialized food, salt, sugar, meat, refined food was not something easy to find. So only kings could actually become really obese and kill themselves with their forks and knives. Even if you take a look at several kings on Europe, like King Henry VIII, he died with 150 kilos. That's probably 320 pounds, 340 pounds. And he was famous by his gluttony and his obesity, because he died eating himself to death. So it's not easy to kill yourself with food back then, but with cooking, with refining process, with the things that we created, it's way much more easier. So what I'm talking about is we created a new way of dieting, because we were living the Garden of Eden, eating fresh fruits and vegetables. The Ice Age happened, we started cooking our foods a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. We started the neolithical period and we started introducing starches and starches and starches. But then a peasant back then, he finds potatoes in nature. He goes and cooks potatoes. He doesn't mix everything in once. He doesn't mix all the food in his plate to be able to eat several different combinations of foods in just one given meal. What I'm suggesting is when we start cooking, food was even way more healthier than it is nowadays because they didn't mix such a big amount of food. They were just eating rice or beans or, really simple fare. Nowadays we mix like 20, 30, 40 different kinds of foods in the same meal and we think that our stomach is going to digest it. It's quite absurd. And the food is not fresh. People talk about fresh bread, fresh rice and beans. No, bread was probably the wheat that made the bread was harvested last year, 6 months ago, 1 year ago, and then they make the flour out of the wheat with the refined white flour. They then send to the bakery, and the baker cook the white flour with a lot of other stuff, plus salt, maybe sugar. Preservatives nowadays goes into the bread, and putting yeast on the bread and a lot of other stuff. And rice and beans, for example. When we go to cook rice and beans, they were probably harvested months ago, 1 year ago. So it's not actually fresh. Fruits and vegetables are fresh. They have an expiration date. If you don't eat them at a certain time, you cannot eat them anymore. So let's start looking at the science about raw foods, for example. If you think about it, in the New York Times in 1979, there was an article about an anthropologist called Alan Walker, and he suggested there was no exceptions found. All the teeth examined from the hominids of the 12 million year period leading up to Homo erectus appeared to be that of fruit eaters. So he suggests that our early human ancestors, Australopithecus, were not predominantly meat eaters or seed eaters, nor were they omnivores, but they have been living in a diet primarily based on fruit. So we can see the scientific article that actually suggests that he actually did for this. He analyzed with laser beams, with some kind of advanced tools, the teeth in the skulls of different kinds of human beings throughout human evolution. And he shows that the teeth of these human beings until pretty recently in time was of frugivorous animals. As he suggests, the micro tears in the teeth of almost 20 strong Australopithecus from Africa are identical of the chimpanzees, orangutans, and mandrills. That means it's the first scientific basis that we can suggest that human beings are anthropoid primates, are frugivores made for fruits and vegetables. So a lot of people talk about the paleo movement, how human beings in the Paleolithic era was really meat eaters, right? But Neanderthals, the real Paleolithic man, the ones that were considered carnivores, according to the science, there's a lot of microfossilized plants in their teeth. So there's a lot of scientific data to suggest that the Paleolithic men actually were eating plants primarily, not meat. As this article in Nature suggests, Antonio Rosas, one of the researchers, we were surprised not to find any remains of meat in the Asturias Neanderthals, given that they were thought to be predominantly meat eaters. However, we have found evidence they enjoyed a variety of diets, including a wide range of plants. So we go a little bit back in the science of raw foods and in the history of raw foods. We have Franz M. Pottinger, a medical doctor that studied cats. He saw that cats that were living on raw foods were more healthy and heal faster from any kind of health issue or surgeries than the cooked food cats. So he actually divided the groups. He actually got 1,000 cats, divided them into 4 groups. One that were only eating raw foods. The other group were eating only cooked foods. The other was pasteurized, and the other was condensed food. That means he was giving them meat and milk, most natural food for cats. But they were actually eating raw meat, cooked meat, really cooked meat, with some industrialized products, some refined products, and really cooked food with a lot of refining products like oils and things like that to complement their diet. And the more cooking or refined food they ate, the worse their health was. So the healthiest group of these 4 groups was the raw food animals. They were more robust, they were more faster, more coordinated, they were free of diseases, and they were docile to the scientists. But the cooked food cats were already a little bit more sick. Pasteurized cats were even more sicker, and the condensed cats were even more. He ended up giving them more and more cooking. He ended up cooking up their food longer, so that ended up causing more loss of nutrients and unhealthier cats the more he changed their diets. He suggested we demonstrate that allergic manifestations and dental issues compared to those who occur in man are consequence of the preparation of the food. The cats fed with cooked food presented the habitual respiratory issues, gastrointestinal issues, and constitutional issues, and even also a lot of skin issues like man. So they had fragile bones, they were aggressive, they lost a lot of weight, they lost their reproductive capacity, the sexual dimorphism, that means that they couldn't reproduce anymore after the 3rd generation, and even they lost the shape of the human body. If it was a male or a female, you couldn't tell the difference. And they had a higher incidence of babies being born deaf. I don't remember the name of that in English. And natimortos in Portuguese, deaf birth babies. And loss of motor coordination and a lot of other health issues. So he was the father of epigenetics. Pottinger was the first to show that what we do in this generation affect the next generation, because the cooked food animals were sicker than the raw food animals. But in the next generation, they were even sicker and sicker and sicker, and to the point of, in the 3rd generation of condensed food cats, the 4th group that were eating the most denatured food, they couldn't even reproduce. Their feces were not good to it was not enough to fertilize other plants. So we can also take a look at Weston Price with his book. Pottinger actually wrote a book called Pottinger Cats. And then there was Weston Price, a dentist, that actually wrote another book called Nutrition and Physical Degeneration, because he saw his patients from the modern world that had all what the money could buy from medical assistance. They were sicker and sicker every time. So he looked at his younger patients always having dental issues, and he decided to travel around the world with his wife. And he traveled along 10 years. He was visiting a lot of primitive people, and he saw that the primitive people were way more healthy than his patients. But these primitive people never saw a dentist, never saw a toothbrush, or never saw a toothpaste. And how the hell can they be more healthier than people that were getting all these medical assistance or dental assistance? It's crazy? No, it isn't. That's what he shows. He shows in his book what bad food causes us, what the cooking process, the refining process actually causes the degeneration of our development. So what people don't understand, we need macronutrients. We need carbs, protein, and fat. But more than macronutrients, we need micronutrients. We need what comes from the earth, the minerals, the vitamins, the phytonutrients, the antioxidants, the fiber from the plants. We need all of this to build our bodies correct. So it's not just to be alive. I don't want to be only alive. I want to be thriving. I want to be as healthy as I can. So yes, there's a lot of more scientists to prove that the raw food concept is actually right, and one day will be recognized by human beings as the best way to nourish ourselves. So we can talk now about Camille Maillard, a medical doctor that discovered what we call nowadays the Maillard reaction end products. So Camille Maillard showed that when you cook a simple potato, you can create up to 420 toxins that were not present before the cooking process. That is the Maillard reaction end products. Nowadays we call AGEs, advanced glycation end products, benzopiren, hydrocarbon polycyclic aromatics, and heterocyclic amines. There is also the alleles, advanced lipid peroxidation products. There's a lot of cooked food toxins. You probably heard about acroleins, and there's hundreds of them. And they were all, at least in animals, proven to be carcinogenic, neurotoxic. One of my ex-girlfriends were always joking that I probably kept saying the same word so I could decorate these things a little bit more. But they're carcinogenic, mutagenic, genotoxic, cytotoxic, pro-inflammatory, teratogenic, clastogenic, and gerontotoxin as well. So that means that they can cause cancer, they can cause mutations, they can cause DNA damage, they can cause cell damage, they can cause chromosomal break, they can cause inflammation, they can induce aging. I don't remember if I lost any kind of word that I just said, but you get the point. Maillard reaction end products are not healthy. We should avoid them, but it's not that easy to avoid them while you are cooking. And there's also Sir Robert McGarrison, a medical doctor paid by the British government to visit the Hunsas in the Himalayan mountains. He ended up living with the Hunsas for 7 years to study them. And he saw that these people were really vigorous, really healthy, and they live up to 100 to 120 years of age, living a productive and healthy life. And he was amazed by their health, and he wrote several books about it. In one of the books called Studies in Deficiencies of Diseases, he said, I don't know anything more potent to keep good health in lab animals than food that is perfectly constituted. And I don't know anything that's as capable of producing bad health than foods that are not accordingly constituted. Foods that are biological adapted to the animal. And that is also Paul Kolchakov, the man that discovered what we nowadays call digestive leukocytosis. Yes, it was not actually him that discovered this. A scientist before him, he discovered what we call digestive leukocytosis. But he thought that anything that we eat caused this leukocytosis. That means increase in the number of the leukocytes. We have the leukocytes that are the white blood cells. There are actually the immune system cells. They only raise in our blood because of an infection or because of some kind of trouble. But when we eat only cooked food, we raise leukocytes. We cause this digestive leukocytosis. If we eat raw food, there is no digestive leukocytosis. There's no substantial increase in the number of the leukocytes. So therefore, our body sees cooked food as an invader, as something harmful to us. And actually, Paul Kolchakov, this guy that saw that only cooked foods cause digestive leukocytosis, won a Nobel Prize for this discovery with this research, the influence of cooking on the blood formula of man. He was also an MD. And there's also Max Gerson. There's documentaries here on YouTube showing his cancer therapy with fruit juices and enemas. I'm not supporting enemas. Natural hygiene don't support enemas. But for sure, he was seen as a quack because he suggested that he could cure cancer. And there's a lot of patients that swear by their lives that he actually could cure their cancers. And there's videos, there's photos, there's even several books written by Max Gerson, but he's still seen as a quack. There's Birch Benner, also a famous doctor, that he actually suggested that he was curing his patients with fruits and vegetables, that he could cure his patients because the energy of the sun was retained inside of these fruits and vegetables. There's also the guy that wrote the book called Enzyme Nutrition. He suggested that cooking could reduce our lifespan, increasing diseases, making us more fragile to disease. He suggested that human beings or animals that were living in diets primarily cooked had organs like the pancreas, hypertrophy, bigger in size, but also organs like the brain, smaller in size, atrophiated. But nowadays we know by science, there's a lot of scientific articles showing that methylglycosal, one of the AGEs, can actually cause brain atrophy. So he was not 100% right, but he saw a lot of the things before there was science out and about. If you think about it, nowadays we know that if you cook a broccoli, the enzyme myrosinase is actually damaged. So you don't get all the health potentials of the glucosinolates being converted by myrosinase in isothiocyanates. Yes, it's a lot of scientific words, but when you cook, you damage some enzymes that can produce some health substances, health nutrients that your body can use to fight disease and produce more health. And actually, isothiocyanates, the substance that the raw broccoli can give you, can actually not just help fight cancer, but a lot of other diseases, like even autism, it's proven to be beneficial. And there's also Arnold Ehret, Professor Arnold Ehret, that is actually was about to die with Bright's disease, found out natural hygiene, a frugivore diet and fasting, and actually saved his life and lived many years more and wrote books about it. Or there was even Johana Brandt, a woman, a European woman that was about to die of pancreatic cancer. She said that she only ate grapes for 3 months and then she was cured of her cancer. She wrote The Grape Cure, and Ehret wrote Mucus-Less Diet's Healing System. There was also Essie Honiball. She was almost dying in a hospital with 40 years of age. And you can still see nowadays videos from her at 97 years old, recorded just a few years ago, where she says that fruit has saved her life. She started eating a fruit-based diet while she was still in the hospital and healed herself and lived 60 years more, at 57. That's like, what medicine, what pill, what kind of medical treatment can give you 57 more years of life when you're about to die in a hospital? I don't know any. So she actually wrote a book. Essie Honiball wrote a book called I Live on Fruit. It's quite funny because all these people that were healed by eating a fruit-based diet or even fasting wrote a lot of books. I think I feel the same because I wrote like 10 books because my life was also saved by fasting and a frugivore diet. So we can take a look at Gandhi, for example. Look what he says in Gandhi's Health Guide, one of his books about health. A period of 6 months is too short to get it to definitive conclusions in a subject that is so important as a complete change of diet. However, I can say that during this period, I have been kept myself well while people suffer from diseases, and my mental capacities and physical capacities are better than before. I may not be able to lift a lot of weight, but I can work heavy for longer without getting fatigued. I can also be more effective in mental activities with more persistence and more easiness. I tested a fruit-based diet in a lot of sick people, and invariably, they all get a lot of benefits. My own experience with this subject gave me the conviction that a diet based on fruit is the best for all of us. Swami Sri Yukteswar. In his book, The Holy Science, he's actually the yogi and guru Paramahansa Yogananda. And he suggested in men of every race, we can verify his instincts by the sense of smell, sense of hearing, sense of taste, and also sense of vision. None of them leads us to the killing of animals. By the contrary, mankind cannot even see the vision of animals being killed. All slaughterhouses are recommended that are built far away from the city. And can we actually consider meat natural to a man that cannot even kill its own prey? But if you take another look, we have to season the food that we eat to be able to eat it. Salt, sugar, oil, even tubers, even complex starch are not edible to human beings in its raw state. And it's not attractive to our senses. But fruits, their colors, taste, smell, it's what most attracts us in its natural state. It's undeniable that mankind are frugivorous animals. So if we also take a look to several biologists throughout human history, for example, Galileo, one of the first medical doctors in history, he suggested the primate is like man in viscera, muscles, arteries, veins, nerves, and bones. But not just him. Other anatomists and physiologists suggest natural food for mankind by judging his structure consists of fruits. Baron Cuvier. So you don't have to even have the science behind it. You can just look at it. So if we take a look at these pictures, for example, you can see lions carrying other animals in their mouth. And it's natural for them to just bite into the raw flesh of an animal that is still alive. Have you ever seen a human being biting into a rabbit that is still alive and eating the whole carcass like a carnivore animal, eating brains, bones, viscera, pancreas, intestines, skin, their blood, while we have several other human beings gorging out of these carcasses? It's for sure not natural. And you can see actually real carnivore hunting their prey. They hunt with their tools, with their biological tools, the anatomical tools. They're able to just kill the animal by a cut in their neck, in their jugular vein. The animal drops dead and they feast upon the animal. So human beings cannot reach 100 kilometers per hour running after prey, after vegetarian animals. If you take a look at a picture like this, the whole family feasting upon a zebra, that's what lions and carnivores do. They can eat up to 45 kilos of meat in just one sitting. It's not like human beings having barbecue and eating 500 grams of meat. So that's why we classify them as carnivores. We also classify the other animals that walk on four paws as herbivores, like horses, donkeys, mules, cows. Why herbivores? Because they can spend the whole day on their four eating the grass, and they salivate when they see the grass. You can see their look like food. We human beings are not herbivores, as most vegans actually suggest. If we were herbivores, we would be like cows, walking on four legs, salivating to grass and other herbs, and eating them the whole day. They are ruminants. They can eat grass the whole day and still manage to digest because they secrete cellulase, the enzyme to digest cellulose from these grass that they eat. And there's actually other kinds of animals like granivores. Granivores are the birds. Birds have a small beak to reach out and to pick these small grains like quinoa, rice, amaranth. And they also have their pouches where they sprout the grain before eating it, before digesting it. So we can classify each kind of species by what they eat through anatomy, physiology, and biochemistry. So there's a lot of other vores. For example, insectivores, animals that are made to eat insects. There are nectarivores, animals that are made to eat nectar. There are omnivores, animals that are made to eat everything, like bears. There are pigs, for example. They're omnivores with the emphasis on tubers. Why? Because pigs have their snouts, their big noses, that they can actually feel the tubers. They can smell the tubers under the soil. And they also have paws that they can excavate the soil. They can dig the soil to actually reach for those tubers. And they can eat the tuber, not just dirty with dirt, but also they can eat the tuber raw, hard as it is, because they secrete amylase, the salivary and the pancreatic enzyme to digest starch. We don't secrete amylase as these animals. We secrete just a little bit. So we are able to digest an unripe banana, but we are not able to digest potato raw. And we are never going to do it because we are built as anthropoid primates. So if you take a look at gorillas, bonobos, orangutans, and chimpanzees, they are 99% in terms of DNA identically to us. Gorillas are 98.5, bonobos are 99.3, but they are extremely similar in terms of anatomy, physiology, biochemistry, in terms of behavior, in terms of family behavior, in terms of social behavior, in terms of even sexual behavior. They can kiss, they can learn languages, they recognize themselves in the mirror, they make sex in several different positions, they have a preference for sweet taste, the colors of the fruits and vegetables attract them. And if you were relegated to nature, if you come back to nature without tools, you are going to see that there's no other way to feed besides eating fruits, vegetables, nuts, and seeds. Because in nature, without all these tools that we designed to cook and to process our foods, the only food that is tasty and attractive in its raw form, it's fruits and vegetables and a little bit of nuts and seeds, that's for sure. So there are only two theories. There are the idea, the theological idea, the church idea, that we came from the rib of Adam and Eve, that we were born, that we were created by God in the Garden of Eden, that we came out from the rib of Adam. Or there is Darwin's theory of natural selection, natural evolution, that we came out from a single cell in the ocean and kept evolving until we become lizards, and then we became mammals, and then we became primates, and then we became human beings. Whatever you think of, whatever is your point of view, the church, the theological view, or the scientific view, still you also believe in the Garden of Eden. Because even science suggests that we lived as primates 8 millions of years in the African jungle. We don't have sponsors. I don't believe in selling supplements, things that I even don't use. The raw fooder hygienist for almost 20 years. I don't buy supplements and I don't sell consumable products. I only sell high quality information so you can understand it, study, and apply in your daily living. How you can do that? By to support us by not just commenting below, giving a thumbs up, sharing this video with everybody that you know, subscribing to the channel, and hitting the bell for notifications. But if you want to help even more us and you can buy the Hygienic Fasting Nature Surgery book on Amazon, the print-on-demand version or the Kindle version. It's for sure the best book and most updated scientific book, natural hygiene book on fasting available. And also there is Natural Delicacies and Cooking Without a Stove. This is the Portuguese version, but Kindle version is already available on Amazon and it will be soon also available on print on demand. The first two books that I wrote actually 10 books, but these first two are available on Amazon for you to have it now so you can learn some recipes, how to adopt a frugivore, fruitarian lifestyle, and also the most comprehensive book on fasting out there. I'm pretty sure It will be really good information for your health journey. But if you also want, I have 6 online courses, but still all in Portuguese. Other 8 books published, but in Portuguese. But I run retreats here in Brazil, January, February, and July. I also attend patients online and in private. So if you want to help us and help you with your health journey, I can be of service. Go on the link below to saudefrugal.com.br or send a message to the WhatsApp below. I will be happy to help you. So most people don't understand that science suggests that we actually evolved from primates. We are classified as by our biology as anthropoid primates. And if you take a look at chimpanzees, they were the last division of the clades, as it's called in biology. But now we know the bonobo was the last link, because after chimps, we actually not came from bonobos. The pygmy chimp, he's a little bit smaller than the chimps, but he's even closer to us in terms of microbiota, in terms of behavior, in terms of diet, in terms of evolution, in terms of DNA. So it's not new that they compare the bonobo genome with the chimpanzee genome and the human genome. The bonobo was the most similar animal to us. And now science is suggesting that maybe primate evolution, our species somewhat, is actually evolving for 40 to 150 millions of years. So 10,000 years cooking is nothing. People think that, oh, we adapt and evolve to eat cooked food. No, that's not what science suggests. 10,000 years of evolution is not actually evolution. And eating cooked food, devoid of micronutrients, poor food in terms of nutrition, would not be actually evolving, but devolving, unevolving, coming back on time, making us worse, dumber, sicker, smaller, weaker, as we have seen not just in science, but in everyday empirical evidence all around us. So, as this article in Nature suggests, primate brain size is predicted by diets but not sociality. Until pretty recently, scientists thought that brain size was actually based on sociality, because we have to be social creatures to help us out in nature, so we evolved because of that. But that's not the case. Actually, the rich environment that we bathed ourselves by eating fruits and vegetables throughout millennia, it's what actually made our brains bigger and smarter. Most people think that was cooked food or meat, humans, and evolved our brains, but I don't think so. And science will continue to prove that is not the case. So this research, for example, shows that red Columbus monkey, just by eating a plant that has more protein, can actually become aggressive. When they eat more fruit, because fruit's more in seasons, more available, they are more docile. So yes, food changes our neurochemistry. Food changes our neurohormonal behavior or neurohormonal milieu. So most people don't understand that, oh, human beings have canines like carnivores, so we are supposed to eat meat. First of all, our skull doesn't have a protuberant mouth, a mouth that points forward like that, so they can chew their prey. Our faces are flat. Our jaws can move side by side, up and down. We can tear the food and made us capable of digesting it. Why? Carnivores doesn't need to chew their food, because the acid is so strong that they burn the food when it gets to their stomach. So they only have to ingest it, only have to tear the flesh and put it in. But we, for example, if try to eat corn, for example, and don't chew the corn, you can see the corn pieces on your feces. You can see even grapes or even small seeds on your feces. Why? Because we are not carnivore animals. We are made to eat plants and disseminate these plants on our feces, on the floor. We replant it to grow new trees, grow new forests. So this looks like a carnivore jaw. It moves like this. So as we call in hygiene, the law of the similars, comparative anatomy and taxonomy shows that we are made as anthropoid primates. We are made as frugivores. So if you think about it, every animal that looks like a lion eats like a lion. Lions, pantheras, jaguars, cats, lynx, and other animals that walk on four paws, that have tails, that have these big jaws, all they live on flesh. It's not flesh, right? They eat just the meat. They eat the whole carcass of the animal. It's all parts. They can even digest bones. So these carnivore animals, they don't see in full color scale. They see only black and white. Why does anthropoid primates and human beings can see colors? Because we are made to choose from fruits that are green or ripe. We need the ripe fruits. So these fruits can do the plant also good, because we are fruit trees symbionts. So these animals are fueled by fats and proteins, while we are fueled by glycogen. We are fueled by carbohydrates, while these animals are fueled by fats. These animals also sleep 18 to 20 hours per day. Animals like anthropoid primates sleep only 8 hours per day. True carnivores actually have a smaller intestine, only 3 times the size of its body, to avoid the meat to rotten inside. Their stomach pH is less than 1, and their stomach capacity is actually 30 or 40% their body weight. That means the lion can eat 40 kilos of food in one sitting. And if you take a look at herbivores like cows, they have 4 stomachs, and their stomach is 20 times more than their bodies. They secrete cellulase, a little bit of starch. The acid in the stomach is pretty weak, 4.5. But if you take a look at anthropoid primates, bipedal, that means they only have 2 legs. They have 2 arms. They have opposable thumbs. Opposable thumbs that make it easy for a life on the top of the trees. They have actually 5 fingers, and they don't have claws on their fingers. They have nails. Their stomach is only 8 to 10 times their body size. That makes for a convolute stomach. That makes keep like rotating. That allows for better nutrient absorption before we poop the food. And we also suffer from stomach diseases like hemorrhoids, intestinal cancers, constipation, appendicitis, diverticulitis when we are subjected to diets poor in fiber. That means we need fiber for proper function. But carnivores, true carnivores, doesn't need fiber. They also don't need carbs, because they can live on a diet devoid of fiber and devoid of carbs and not get heart disease, these bowel diseases. That means real carnivores can eat the whole day cholesterol and saturated fat without paying the price for it. So these carnivore animals give birth to litters and not just to one son. They have numerous mammary, abdominal, thoracic glandules. They have several nipples around their chest. That means they can feed several children at once, different from human beings that only have 2 nipples and 2 breasts. Their placent zonary instead of our placent that is discoid. It's 2 different ways of creating the baby. So even the jaws, if you take a look at the dental formula of man, it's quite different from the dental formula of carnivores. We have the same dental formula of anthropoid primates. So these carnivore animals, for example, they produce their own vitamin C inside of them, and they can detoxify vitamin A. That means they can biosynthesize vitamin C, because throughout evolution, they didn't need to eat vitamin C, because their bodies are able to produce it. But for us human beings, we die of deficiency of vitamin C. We suffer from scurvy when we don't have enough vitamin C. Why? Because throughout evolution, we don't need it to maintain the gene to produce vitamin C, because fruits and vegetables were pretty abundant. So we just delete the gene, we just turn it off, this gene, throughout evolution. So there's a lot of things we have to think about it. Carnivore animals, they sweat through their tongues. We sweat from pores. There's a lot of easy things to take notice. But for example, we don't only need vitamin C, but we can synthesize the beta-carotene, the phytonutrient, from carrots or mangoes or oranges or a pumpkin into vitamin A because we evolve eating these plants. And there's a lot of other things. The blood and the urine and the saliva of carnivores are acid. Ours are alkaline. They secrete uricase, an enzyme to metabolize uric acid. We don't secrete uricase. That's why we get gout when we eat a lot of meat. Hyperuricemia, as we call in science. Hyperuricemia. I could keep talking about several different visible differences in anatomy, physiology, and biochemistry between carnivores, herbivores, and frugivores. But what is the point? I think you already get it. So this article actually in PLOS Genetics showed that although sweet sugars are ubiquitous in human foods, they are seldom added to cat food, and owners usually do not feed sweets to their cats. This is because, in contrast to most other mammals, both domestic cats and their wild cousins, the big cats, do not show a preference for, and most likely cannot detect sweet tasting compounds. Other than the sweet blindness, the cat's sense of taste is normal. That's a really interesting thing we need to think about it. Cats doesn't have the gene that codifies a protein that comes to the tip of their tongue, allow them to sense the sweet taste. But we have this gene that allow us to sense the sweet taste, but we don't have the same genes as cats that allow us to sense as much fat and protein as our primary source of foods. That's why you don't eat meat without salt, without cooking, with gusto. But until pretty recently, there was not too many articles suggesting men actually unspecialized frugivores. So take a look at these scientific articles. In this paper, we discussed the hypothesis proposed by some authors that man is an habitual meat eater. Gut measurements of primate species do not support the contention that human digestive tract is specialized for meat eating, especially when taking into account allometric factors and the variations between folivores, frugivores, and meat eaters. The dietary status of the human species is that of unspecialized frugivores. That means we can eat meat and seeds, but we're made primarily for fruits and vegetables. It doesn't mean that we have to live on fruit, but fruit will be our primary maintenance when we learn to respect our nature. And the article continues to suggest, however, one should notice that the largest primate species, especially anthropoids, use mainly vegetable matter to meet their protein requirements. Chimpanzees may occasionally eat the meat of small mammals, but they do not cover the protein requirements from this source. Anyhow, this source is rarely available to females and never used by the youngest animals. So if these animals, they're 99% of our DNA, don't eat meat when they grow, and probably don't even eat meat to reach for their B12 necessary daily needs, where do they get their B12? Where do they get their protein? So these other articles in PLOS One suggest that Kaniwara chimps are actually not frequent runters. They hunt animals and they eat their meat once per month in average and rarely eat insects. Once per month don't provide the B12 that we need, that we daily need. Actually, science suggests that we should eat meat twice a day to meet our B12 requirements. If you take a look at Okinawa and other blue zones, they eat meat pretty infrequently. They have lower adequate ingestion of B12, but still, they don't show B12 deficiency symptoms. So if you take a look at Catherine Newton, a scientific article called Micronutrient Intakes of Wild Primates, Are Humans Different? She suggests that we know this low intake of micronutrients associated with several health issues. And men are member of the order of the primates, suborder Anthropoidea apes. So if humans and primates are impressionably similar biologically speaking, and in the jungle primates consume a diet primarily based on vegetables, almost exclusively plant-based diets, shouldn't we as human beings be eating similar to them and that our really low micronutrient intake is not the cause for diseases, are these huge amount of micronutrients that these primates ingest just a byproduct, not a natural byproduct of their diets, and is not playing any role in their immune system, in their physiology and biochemistry? Or we just didn't discover yet the benefits of eating 5 times to 10 times the RDA and the RIs for these micronutrients? Because if I track my diet, the amount of micronutrients that I ingest in a common day, it's way much higher than normal people. So Catherine Milton, actually another article, suggests nutritional characteristics of wild primates foods. Do the diets of our closest living relatives have lessons for us? So she suggests that there are plenty of recommendations for Americans to be eating more fresh fruits and vegetables, and that human beings are not sui generis creatures. That means human beings are not unique in nature. We came from anthropoid primates, we're pretty similar from them, and we should be having diets and lifestyles pretty similar to them as well. So we are biological omnivores, as this picture suggests. If we are not biological omnivores, we're omnivores by cooking, because cooking allows us to eat potatoes, rice, beans, meat. But if it was not by cooking, we would still be frugivores. But yes, while we have the tools and the capacity to cook, we can eat as omnivores. And you just take a look at a picture like this. The love and the capacity to hug and to feel love with a carnivore, it's different. Chimps and us and primates in general, different kinds of feelings, thoughts, and behaviors with other animals compared to carnivores. If this picture of chimp holding a baby lion and this picture of a lioness, herbivore animal, it's completely different. We don't have in nature the willpower, the behavior of just carrying other animals around while they're dead so we can feast on them. So even if you take a look at, for example, this graph of parameters of sleep in different kinds of species, herbivores, frugivores, animals that don't supposed to eat a lot of meat, they don't sleep as much. They sleep 10 hours. And if you take a look at anthropology, there's evolutive line of man, order, suborder, the group, superfamily, family. All biology, anthropology classify us into primates species. So just the last thoughts before we close this lecture. Take a look at this, a slaughterhouse. And you take a look at this, a field of rice. And you can take also a look at this, a field of potatoes. If that doesn't show you that that is a potato below that plant, you are not capable to finding that potato like pigs. You have to know it, the right tools. But after you excavated the potato, is still bland, incapable of being eaten raw, and dirt. You don't have water to wash it in nature. But fruits and vegetables, the food of mankind, actually the perfect fuel for our species. So just take a look at cats. We have been feeding them for 50 years, 70 years, this cat's food that is processed food with rice, wheat, carrots, meat, but all preserved and processed and seasoned, conserved, so cats can eat it throughout the year. But think about it. Does feeding cats with cat foods did change his anatomy, physiology, and biochemistry to allow him to be a pet eater, a pet foodivore? No, he's still a carnivore. His organisms, his digestive system is flexible, so he can eat a lot of foods if he has to survive. But thriving is a different thing. If you want to thrive, you have to eat the foods that are natural for your organisms. If you need to survive, and in nature you don't have the best foods for you, so you will do anything that it's needed to do to survive. And that's what we are doing right now. We are surviving with cooked food. We're surviving with eating grains and pasta and animals, but we can thrive way better with our natural diet. As Pythagoras suggests in Metamorphoses from Ovid, he suggests there was a time, the golden age, abundance in fruits and leaves, where no man taint his lips with blood, and birds would fly safe through the air, and rabbits would walk around without fear, and no fish was actually caught. All things were free from treachery, fear, and malice, and everything was filled with peace. But some good-for-nothing innovator, whoever he was, decided out of envy that what the lions ate was better, and he stewed meat in his belly like a furnace and paved the way for crime. One crime leads to another. That is the quotes from the golden age of man. But look at this really interesting connection between the golden age and what actually happened. Because this golden age of man was finished when man actually was expelled from paradise, from the golden age, because cold winds came and made everything cold. And then Prometheus, the titan of fire, gave the fire and meat to man. And man accepted this. But Zeus, the main god, opened the Pandora's box with everything bad that can happen to society. So if you take a look, we can actually relate mythology to anthropology, to geology, to science, and we can actually relate also theology to science, because this actually happened. The golden age of man finished when the glaciation worm that I talked in the beginning of this lecture happened. 100,000 years ago, the ice age happened. So it was these cold winds, because these people back then, they didn't have books, they didn't have writings. So how can they write about something that happens, but they still cannot register history? It only has 10,000 years. Prehistorical times were millions of years. So they were trying to tell a story that actually happened without having the scientific tools, the language to actually teach people what actually happened back then. So yes, I believe that this mythology and the theology actually can correlate and can corroborate with the science, and shows that yes, the ice age, the last ice age, made men start to cook. And when men start to cook and eating meat, that was the Pandora's box. We opened the biggest issue in mankind history. We actually managed to live, to survive throughout an era that was harsh, but we actually started to cause damage to us and to the future generations. So just before we finish, if you read Genesis 1:29 in the Bible, then God said, I give you every seed-bearing plant on the face of the whole earth, and every tree that has fruit with seed in it, they will be yours for food. If you take a look at the book called The Sin Gospel of Peace, it says, do not kill men or animals, not even the food you bring to your house, not even the food that you bring to your mouth. For if you eat living food, it will give you life. But if you kill your food, the dead food will kill you too. For life comes only from life, and from death always, and death always comes from death. Because everything that kills your food also kills your bodies. And everything that kills your bodies also kills your souls. And your bodies become what your food is, as your spirit becomes what your thoughts are. Therefore, do not eat anything that fire, ice, or water has destroyed. For food that is burnt, frozen, or decomposed will burn, freeze, and corrupt your body as well. Do not be like the crazy farmer who planted boiled, frozen, and decomposed seeds in his field. And autumn came, and his fields yielded nothing, and great was his affliction. Otherwise, be like the farmer who planted living seed in his field, and whose field brought forth living ears of wheat, paying him 100-fold for the seeds he sowed. For truly I say to you, live only by the fire of life, and do not prepare your food with the fire of death, which kills your food, your bodies, and your soul. So just to finish this lecture, Jared Diamond, the famous anthropologist that wrote several bestsellers, And one of the most famous ones is Guns, Germs, and Steel, How We Develop Our Societies. He suggests man, the hunter, is a myth, and he doubts that the hunting was the main force that drove our brains and society to become so developed. For all history, we were not strong hunters, but sophisticated primates, sophisticated baboons. Recent discoveries suggest that the adoption of agriculture was the biggest catastrophe which we never recuperate, causing inequality, not just social, but sexual, and also disease that curse our existence. So I ask you, if a dozen of different sciences point to the same evidence, shouldn't we reconsider? Because I show you nutrition, biology, biochemistry, genetics, anthropology, geology. There's dozens of sciences to show that human beings were raw fooders, frugivores, living on the jungle for millions of years, and we evolved this way, and we are better adapted to have perfect health this way. But we changed the whole planet, we change our behavior when we start eating cooked food. So yes, we can live off cooked food, but we are destroying the planet. The way to save the planet, I'm pretty sure of, is actually coming back to our natural frugivore diets. But I know this is a utopia. Most people wouldn't even think about it. But I say to you, do what others do and have the results that others have. If you take a look at America, if you take a look at any developed country in the world, they have the most financial capacities and the most medical capacities to be the healthiest they can be, but they are actually the sickest. So the last quote I need to do, and it's actually a quote from myself: there is no peace in the planet when a chemical warfare is every day happening inside of you. That means our biochemistry should be perfect, should be one that induces peace. But when we start cooking and eating the flesh of another animals a few thousand years ago, we change our biochemistry, we change our brain's behavior, and we start a war inside of us that is creating the war outside of us that we see around the planet. So if you want to help yourself, your friends, your loved ones, and you want peace in the planet, you want a better planet for all of us, you must start living more close to your biological needs, living more close to nature, living a more fruit and vegetable diets. It will be the best for all of us. So just to finish, animal liberation. If we don't need to kill other animals, why do we do it? If you see the terror, scare, if you see the feelings of these animals, how and why do you want to kill them? How is a small sense of taste for a few seconds worth more than the life of this animal? I question you. Why not to eat something that don't suffer and don't scream for its life before it's killed? Because fruits and vegetables are actually given by the plant to you because the plant wants help to be replanted, grow a new tree, and make more of its kind. So my main scientific book on this topic, is actually Dieta do Éden, but it's still not translated to English. It will be available soon, but until then, I highly recommend you to support our work, reading the Hygienic Fasting, Nature Surgery, ordering in print on demand on Amazon, and also Natural Delicacies, Cooking Without a Stove. So these are the first two ways you can help and support our work. If you want a nutritional consultation, you can also apply for it, and I can help you out at making a meal plan for you. There's more natural. You don't even need to become a frugivore or anything like that, or a raw fooder. I can help you out with your diet. And also, I not just attend patients, but I run retreats here in Brazil, and I can do that in English, or have a translator during the retreat. So you can live by natural hygiene's point of view for 7 days and eat tropical fruit right in front of the beach with a tennis court on the yard, with a lot of rare fruit trees on the yard as well. come and join us and help us out to spread this helpful message. And also, if you like the video, don't forget, give it a thumbs up, comment, share the video, hit the subscribe button, and click the bell for notifications. Do you want to know more what do I eat? Do you want to know more about fasting? I'll put these two videos over here, so just click it to understand a little bit more about the subjects.